Very good morning, my dear students. Today I am going to deliver lecture on D.H. Lawrence Pen in America. It's for the 6th semester students of English major of Guwahati University. D.H. Lawrence, full name perhaps you all know, David Herbert Richard Lawrence. Also wrote under the pseudonym Lawrence H. Davidson. He is an English novelist, novella and short story writer, poet, essayist, critic, translator, and dramatist. One of the most original English writer of the 20th century, Lawrence has been praised for his short stories that explore human nature through frank discussions of sex, psychology, and religion. In his lifetime, he has received a controversial figure, both because of the explicit use of sexuality he portrayed in his fiction and his unconventional personal life. His individual life is not common with other common people. He led a very unconventional life. Critics note that his sourced fiction was often based on experience from his working class youth in England's industrial Midlands. Several of his stories are considerably masterly and innovative examples of the short fiction and crucial to Lawrence's developments as a novelist. If we go through the biographical information about Lawrence, we all know that he was born on September 11 in 1885 in the colliery town of Eastwood, Nottingham. His father was a coal miner, and Lawrence blamed the debilitating mine work of his father's debased condition. Lawrence attended local grammar and high schools, and later from 1906 to 1908 studied in Nottingham University. Nottingham University College, where he began writing short stories. In 1908, he moved to Croydon, just south of London, to teach in a school. While there, he encountered Ford Madox, Ford's English Review, where he published some of his early poetry and, more meaningful to the evolution of his fiction, discovered what he and others termed the exciting new school of realism. His works or his writings can be compared with, or together with, we can also read some of the writers like Thomas Hardy, Henry James, Joseph Conrad, Leo Tolstoy. In 1911, on the onset of tuberculosis, forced Lawrence to resign from teaching. That same year, he published his first novel, The White Pickup. And in this way, he started his career. At the age of 27, Lawrence eloped to Germany with Freda von Richthofen Weekly, the wife of one of his colleague professors, and both were married in 1914. In 1913, Lawrence published his first major work, which is largely autobiographical, kind of novel, Sons and Lovers, and also The Prussian Officer, The Rainbow, The Lady Chatterley's Love, and consequently is writing his very popular and very interesting novels, which has started a different trend in the English novel writing. Major works of short fiction, many critics consider Lawrence as a short stories of his most artistically accomplished writings and have attributed much of their success to the constraints of the form that forced Lawrence to deny himself the elaborations, diversions, and repetitions. So while discussing while discussing his pan in America, we have come across the significance. What is pan? The significance of pan as a god representing nature and its many dimensions, accommodating a quiet but responsive ambience, has been well acknowledged in the Western cultural tradition. But the reception of Pan has not always followed the same trajectory which, for example, Wordsworth. For instance, Wordsworth, among the romantics, he was one of the most distinguished, who was very much fond of nature. He sought to engage with Pan in terms of what nature suggested and offered for human conduct and action, nature acting as one of the cornerstones in his poetic philosophy. Wordsworth was born in Lake District in England, which was completely a beautiful natural scenery, a lot of lakes, and when we are going across the poems like Lucy, poems like Tintern Abbey, poems like Daffodils, these are all beautiful examples where Wordsworth has given beautiful examples of how he was very much inclined to nature, and his human conduct, his action, his nature, his everything is acting as the center stones of his poetic philosophy. The mere engagement of an ethos that seeks to understand nature in all-encompassing role is what Lawrence asks questions of. That is why he does not subscribe to the idea that display of affinity with nature. It is only the way to make sense of the way life operates. A telling example of this is evident when he is critical of the 19th century American poet Walt Whitman. Another says, we can say, Walt Whitman, then Ralph Waldo Emerson, then David Henry. So all Walt is Pan, but all Pan is not Walt, what Walt Whitman says. Lawrence is critical of the tradition in which Pan is placed, especially when it comes to the aesthetic representations of for he feels that there is a shifting in focus, and the association of Pan with nature does not quite justify the way it should be done. For Lawrence, there is a paradox at the heart of Pan, a figure whose engagement in Western culture has often been taken to represent a quiet and innocuous nature. But Pan is not to be seen or understood only in terms of its supposed calm and quiet aspects, for Pan has the aggressive side too, which, once it is active, can overwhelm static modes of functioning. What Lawrence is trying to argue is that the idea of Pan must be approached and assessed without disengaging that aspect which complements his image as a quiet, calm god of nature. The multiple dimensions of nature cannot be appreciated by just the idea of the picturesque and calm that Pan is conventionally associated with, but the ignored side of the mythical figure must brought to bear on the proper understanding of nature and the human response to it. So Lawrence's reappropriation of the Pan myth for a sustained and involved response to the environment is presented by means of an argument that drawn of the practice of reciprocity. He comes down on the problematic and partial representation of Pan in literature and art, suggesting that the ways in which the Greek god has been reduced to a bystander occupied with a limited space and range, such reduction does not represent the balance that is the heart of the man-nature relationship. Lawrence looks at the need for a more nuanced and subtle understanding of the circumstances in which the world of nature encompasses man and his activities. Failure to come to terms with the environment can lead to a crisis from which recovery would be almost impossible. When he looks at the parallel possibilities through the register of the oppositional terms of savage and civilized, quote unquote, in both the word, Bo is not arguing for return to the day prior to civilization. What is arguing for is a major accommodative response where it would be possible to extend the human view beyond the merely mechanical. For such a holistic response to the engendered in man, it is imperative that the world be seen for his originality or for his organicity, and not simply reduced to some of space which is bounded by physical limits. D.S. Lawrence calls for overhauling for that restrictive attitude which hampers the widening of the human vision. Pan, for Lawrence, becomes a principle, one which constitutes the very idea of freedom and a fetter-free environment where no constraints impinge upon the very condition of existence. He is, in other words, arguing for a form of life that doesn't subject itself to mechanized formats, but rather opens up to engage with vast possibilities of living that sustained involvement with the environment facilitates.